This is Performance Delivered, Insider Secrets for Digital Marketing Success with Steffen Horst.
Welcome back to Performance Delivered, Insider Secrets to Marketing Success, the podcast where we dive into what's driving results in today's ever-evolving marketing landscape. I'm your host, Steffen Horst, and today we're exploring a fascinating and fast-changing topic, the intersection between AI and PR. Artificial intelligence is transforming how we search, discover, and engage with information. And that includes how brands build credibility, earn attention. And traditional PR is evolving and understanding how AI impacts visibility, authority, and storytelling has never been more crucial. To help us unpack this, I'm joined by Jackson Wightman, founder of Proper Propaganda and author of the PR Playbook. Jackson is also an AI and PR enthusiast who's been helping brands, startups, communicators navigate this new era where algorithms meet storytelling. Today, we'll explore how AI search is changing the PR landscape, from how stories are ranked and surfaced to how credibility itself is being algorithmically assessed. Well, Jackson, before we dive in, tell us about your journey. What led you to start Proper Propaganda, and how did your interest in the intersection between AI and PR begun?
For sure. Thank you, Steffen, and thank you for having me on. My journey in PR began about, let's say, 23 years ago, and I came out of politics. I was younger, and I was working for a person who would go on to become Prime Minister of Canada, and working on his issue management team, working with a team that was doing some public-facing communications. And it was a wonderful finishing school, effectively, because politics is a real pressure cooker, obviously, in terms of media. So I went from there, got into the corporate world, worked, as I was alluding to in our chat before we started recording, for a company in Los Angeles, which was a really interesting experience. And from there, started my own firm, and my previous employer was actually my first client. So Proper Propaganda is 13 this year. We didn't start out as a tech-focused agency. We've been around for a little while and having a blast doing it. I really couldn't imagine doing anything else. So that's my career. In terms of AI and PR, I think it's pretty much inescapable these days. And if you get around PR people, they just can't shut up about it.
Wow.
Obviously AI is becoming the new window of discovery on the internet, I think, for a lot of us, and it's going that way for sure. So a lot of the way we do PR, a lot of the ways we think about PR has changed. And being a tech agency, a lot of our clients are forward thinking. A lot of our clients are in industries where they are looking forward, where they're always trying to be abreast of the next big thing. And I think part of our role is to guide them through this process, guide them through this fairly monumental transition.
Now, let's start broad. Why should PR professionals care about AI search? What's at stake for brands that don't adapt to this new search environment?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say that I'll start with kind of a data-backed answer. Last March, so this March of 2025, Google's share of the search market first dipped below 90% for the first time in 20 years. So traditional search, Google's blue link business, is still a big business. And if companies are doing well with that, they should keep doing it, as I tell everyone. But it is changing. The move is more and more towards AI engines as answer engines, as the window, the first step towards discovery on the internet. And anybody who's played around with Google in the last while, of course, knows that Google is now generating AI answers to many queries that it gets. So this is absolutely the way things are going. And I think what we've seen and what aggregate data shows is that the outputs of PR, whether that's some content marketing that a PR department might touch, whether that's the earned media a PR program might generate, maybe that's influencer coverage that PR team or agency might have a hand in, all impact what these AI engines surface as answers. So all of these things are scraped. And I think because of this intersection, because over 50% of AI answers, according to a recent Muckrack study, have journalistic citations, journalistic sources, PR has to be involved in it. And it's really the new frontier of reputation, I think.
I assume you got a lot of client asking about it. I mean, it's kind of the new shiny thing that everyone wants to get involved in, but there's still there's still not questions, but there's still a limited amount of visibility, especially for companies within LLMs, whether you take, ChatGPT, Perplexity, or any other, for example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of people are asking about it. I think it remains a little bit of a black box for many people, and even for those of us who are thinking about it all the time. There's absolutely data points that the AI companies haven't really surfaced that we would all love to get our hands on, that we'd all love to know about. But it is absolutely on the minds of most of our clients. And one of the reasons I think that it is on the minds of so many is because AI seems to be, at least for a lot of people, in its sort of neutral oracle phase. So we all understand that we can go and buy our way onto the top of Google's blue links. We all understand that we can buy our way into placement in, Amazon. We don't yet, and it hasn't quite sunk in, that we don't really have a vehicle to buy our way into the top of ChatGPT results when somebody says, what are the 5 best keyboards for a student at college or something. So there's still this perception, I think, that AI is a neutral oracle, that you can't just buy your way into the game yet. And that is having a big impact. And I think that's a big opportunity for brands that might not be at the top of the heap in terms of their industries. They're challenger brands, perhaps they're, scale ups or startups, and they want to compete against bigger players. This is the shining moment for that. Will that window be open forever? Will it be open much longer? I don't have a crystal ball, but I don't think it will be open forever. So this is an interesting, dynamic time in a way for some of the challengers to maybe compete against the big boys.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a first mover advantage here. And that will disappear because the bigger companies, they will probably wait at least a little bit and see what is happening, and then they will dive in full force. Once there's more clarity on how to do certain things in order to show up, or how to, I use the word manipulate, although it might not be the best way, how to manipulate the results that the LLMs show us for specific questions.
Yeah, and I mean, now there's been some interesting news in the last even 4 weeks from the time we're recording this. ChatGPT is introducing an instant checkout. You're going to be able to not only get buying recommendations in ChatGPT, but you're going to be able to make the purchase within the experience of that and not have to go to external places. So there's absolutely benefits that accrue, as you said, to early movers, to folks who have, there are best practices now. Will they be best practices in 6 months? Probably they won't. But there's definitely benefits that accrue to those in early because we are at this dynamic time, as you said.
Yeah. I mean, what you just brought up is an interesting point. When we discussed that, I think just last week here with our teams, whether it's an advantage potentially for e-commerce businesses or anyone who kind of is able to make that work, or a disadvantage. From an e-commerce perspective, I wonder if it becomes a disadvantage because all you do is you buy that one product that you're searching for. You're not going to explore the store any longer because you don't physically go to the store. You're just connected through the LLM.
That's it.
Store, and then you check out, which means I'm pretty sure order values will come down. And then the question becomes, is that one sale really going to be so profitable? Or is there going to be even a stronger focus moving forward on retaining customer? Because if you can't get profit from one client, right, then you got to get that client in more often in order to make your money.
I agree with you. And I think some of the implicit hypotheses that you just outlined, I share. So will it be better? Will this sort of in ChatGPT checkout be better for e-commerce brands? It's hard to say. It depends a little bit on the category. People aren't probably buying high ticket items. Think about a really expensive pair of headphones or something. They're not buying it just because ChatGPT recommended it. It's a very considered purchase. But there are certain products, if you think of, stationery or certain charging products or something, that I might just buy what is suggested in the store as the add-on product, or the customers bought this together kind of product. Does that kill that in ChatGPT? It'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. And I don't know, but it's certainly it's going to be fascinating. One of the things that we see, and we see it in our client work, is that AI does not generate, and there's tons of aggregate data about this too. AI just doesn't generate further click-throughs. People stop, they get the summary, and that's where the game ends for them. What do they do after that? Well, that's really anybody's business. We don't always know, but at this point, we're moving to this kind of zero click universe, zero Google universe potentially.
Yeah. Now, the percentage of what is kind of the zero click element is still very, very small.
Absolutely.
I said it earlier. Google or any other search engine, they still deliver a huge amount of value, but
a multi-billion-dollar business, not going anywhere for a while.
There is going to be a decline, and we for example see already declines in search volume on the organic side for our clients, right?
Yep.
So that's indicative to, you got to look at it. You got to have a strategy on how am I going to take advantage of this AI opportunity, and how do I protect myself also when this potentially completely flips, right? At the moment, it's still who's taking advantage of it. Is it more business side? Is it younger people? What about the older people? Are they familiar with it? Are they getting used to it, etc.? So there's still questions around usage from that perspective.
Yep.
But I mean, let's be realistic. It's not going to disappear. It's going to stay, and it's going to become stronger every year passing,
Just picking up on the point you just made, one of the more interesting use cases of how to deal with this less Google, I won't call it zero Google universe. One of the more interesting use cases to me is actually media companies, publishers, because if you think about the Atlantic or the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, or whoever it was, whatever the media property is, so much of the game for so long was optimizing content around traditional SEO. And now the content is scraped in answers. I mean, there's now a rudimentary setup. There are companies like Tollbit are allowing these media companies to get paid based on how much of their content is scraped and stuff. But for a long time, and I think still, we're in that Wild West moment where these are companies that were highly dependent on Google. That's not going to be a play that's really got a lot of future for them. And they got to figure out how to get paid. I think at some juncture, media companies and AI companies have this symbiosis. The AI companies need good journalism, need answers, need to scrape places that are reputable and not just some, blogger who lives in mommy's basement or something. But it hasn't shaken out yet, in my opinion, and the business model is not entirely clear in terms of winners and losers yet.
Yeah, I agree. They will have to find a way to work together, because if web pages like media companies block, LLMs to enter the content, I mean, it doesn't benefit anyone. Right?
No, it doesn't.
Not discoverable. The LLMs don't get content that probably the users of their systems would like to see. So will have to be something like back in the days when Google and these media companies had to sit together, had to say, okay, how are we going to make this work so that both of us benefit?
Yep.
Now, coming back to kind of the PR side. So PR traditionally focuses on building relationships and earning coverage. How do those outputs, press mentions, thought leadership pieces, backlinks, now influence how AI systems interact and rank information?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the basic answer is that when somebody queries an AI engine, ragbots, who are the sort of retrieval army, the answer army, who are sent across the internet to get an answer to that query that a user has pumped into ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity, they regularly scrape and cite and crawl earned media coverage because it is viewed as trustworthy, because it is viewed as, obviously, Fox has a slant and MSNBC has a slant and all that, but generally for a lot of categories, and I think for politics too, probably, it is viewed as trustworthy. And so earned media, the main output of traditional PR for the last 100 years, let's call it, is a key factor in how a company shows up in prompts that are relevant to its category, that are obviously relevant directly to its brand if people are typing in a company's name in the search bar. So that's really where PR is intersecting. PR is also intersecting, as I say, because some PR departments are tasked with content marketing. Content on owned media properties, it's scraped less than earned content in aggregate by AI engines, but it still matters. And there are ways, as there were in the sort of traditional SEO age, there are ways to produce earned content that make it more likely that that content is going to be scraped by various engines. So a lot of the enterprise of PR, a lot of the output of PR, at least for now, is very central to how AI goes and finds answers and what it bases answers upon. And that's what's given an industry that for a long time was kind of the redheaded stepchild or black swan or whatever the analog or whatever the expression is, it's given it new life.
How has AI search optimization changed the work or the way PR professionals work? What strategies or metrics are you seeing emerge as essential?
There's a couple, and I'm sure some of this dovetails with your own work as well. The first thing that's really interesting is that AI search optimization is obviously a catch-all term. AI engines are not monolithic in what they scrape and what they go and look at to produce answers. So I think that's one of the big problems right now. People talk about AI search engine optimization. If your users are on ChatGPT, the program we're going to have to design for you to boost your presence there, improve how much you're showing up in prompts, the sources we're going to target are very, very different than the program and the sources we're going to design if your users are searching for your category on Claude, say, or Perplexity. And I think right now we have a little bit of a data gap in that I haven't seen, at least I've seen a little bit, but I haven't seen a lot of data on how demography or income group or even the query type matches up with AI engine use. So is grandma using Microsoft AI and is the Gen Z kid in the house using Claude or something? We don't have enough of this yet. And I think a lot of companies haven't surveyed their customer base yet to find this out. But the programs that you have to design from a PR perspective vary greatly depending on the engine that matters to a company or organization, because what ChatGPT is going after, what Google's going after are different. Google tends to prioritize, surprise, surprise, certain Google properties like YouTube in terms of what it scrapes. We've seen Perplexity, and again, these are aggregate sort of statements. We've seen Perplexity put a lot of weight into Reddit. It also weights YouTube. ChatGPT seems to weight earned media a little more. We're a consumer tech agency. We see that a lot in terms of consumer tech products. There's a disproportionate weight given to earned media. Claude is a different thing as well. So AI search optimization, the output of PR, and how it's changing how we work. It's really focusing. It's forcing people to focus on what engine and what sources because those differ. The other thing that's weird, and I wanted to add this, in PR, traditionally, the approach has been get me into bigger places more often. And I understand the brand equity value of the Wall Street Journal or the LA Times or TechCrunch or whatever it is. But sometimes what we see now is that small, tiny websites that you probably never heard of, that people don't care about, that no one in 20 years in PR has been like, Jackson, put me here. These small, tiny websites are, in some instances, really, really weighted and valued by AI. And so it's changing the targeting game from this kind of mass aerial bombing campaign to just get as much as you can, make it as big as you can. And it's getting into a little bit more surgical work. So we don't really need that New York Times if the purpose of our program is AI search optimization. Maybe we just need this weird little website over here that has 200,000, views a month or something, but is overly scraped given its size by ChatGPT in our category. So there's a little more refinement, which I think is a good thing because I spent a lot of my career explaining to people that, we couldn't just keep delivering big names every month after month.
Now, what I hear from you is that you have to optimize the content that you're creating depending on where your customers are. So you talked about, ChatGPT uses different sources than Gemini and Perplexity and Microsoft, etc. Does that make things more complex for you as a PR professional? Because, for example, let's say you're going after decision makers, but as part of what you're doing, you also have to go after the champions that influence the decision, and they might not be on the same LLM, for example, right?
You might not.
Does that make things more complex?
It does in some instances. It also makes it more complex when a business has disparate elements to it. So maybe they make computing peripherals, but they also make office furniture, but they also make lamps or something. We actually have a client that does this. So it's a real example. It's been hard to figure out where we need to go to get these people further up because it's a harder program to design. It's a harder amount of targeting and management to do. So there is an element of complexity to this. There's an element of complexity that I think the PR industry, and I think maybe marketing more generally, hasn't quite figured out how to budget, hasn't quite figured out, okay, do we really know this? Have we surveyed our customer base? We're not quite there yet, I don't think, as an industry, but it is absolutely, to your question, a more complex game with these multifaceted buying tiers or influence tiers or companies that have a disparate product line.
Interesting. Now, from what you guys do you see there's a stronger overlap with kind of what SEO companies do in general, or is this still kind of working in parallel?
So there's absolutely back-end technical elements to this. And as somebody who's never written a line of code or developed a website in his life, those are things that I do not know about. There's a very important interplay between PR, because we know journalism is so heavily scraped and certain other types of media are so heavily scraped. There's a very important interplay between PR and dev, and in some instances, traditional SEO. I always sort of thought of traditional SEO as this sort of voodoo priesthood that was very abstruse and complex. And when they met and talked, these voodoo priests, I didn't really understand what they were saying half the time. And I think that's a common enough experience for people who've interfaced with kind of older school SEO teams, not hating on SEO in any ways, but it was a very technical inside baseball kind of game. Not that geo isn't, but it seems that, at least for now, as I said, some of the elements that influence geo directly intersect with other disciplines of marketing, particularly content and PR, less the paid stuff. You still need back end, you still need dev, and you still need some of that SEO expertise to make sure that your own house and your own media properties are in order.
Yeah. Now, in the past, there was a lot of focus on writing content towards specific keywords, right? That you show up in search results. Has that changed? And if so, from your perspective, what do people need to focus on now?
It's a really interesting question. And we lived through that era, you and I, I'm sure, and probably a lot of the listeners, of just this keyword stuffing. These things were just painful to come across, like assaults on the senses and brain, reading this crap that people wrote to optimize for SEO. I am afraid that this could well happen again in an AI search optimization world, the one we're heading towards in all likelihood. Seen a lot of content that is clearly written for bots and not humans. Do I think that will... I don't have a crystal ball. It's hard to predict what will happen if certain LLMs will become a bit more refined in what they're scraping. We've seen, and I'm sure you've seen, sometimes if you're optimizing for a specific prompt, you can go on your company blog and you can write top 10 headphone companies and you can put yourself at the top, and AI engines will go, if you structure the headline properly and the meta descriptions and stuff like that, they'll go and they'll scrape it. And I understand that that's good. And I understand everybody's got to get ahead and take what advantages are there to them. But it's also kind of annoying because we're already inundated with AI slop. And just as a sentient human, it's a little bit of an assault on the senses, I think. However, maybe things will become more refined. Google is still refining its approach to traditional search. I know in our world, there was a time when you could just flood the internet with press releases and it would affect Google indexing and Google ranking. And then Google said, you know what, we understand this is complete BS and we're going to put an end to it. So do I think we're going to be inundated with more crap on the AI geo side? I absolutely do, because it seems like there's evidence to suggest it's working for some entities right now, which means everybody's going to jump on the bandwagon. But hopefully it doesn't last too long.
For brands that haven't yet integrated AI search thinking into their PR or content efforts, where do they start? What's the first practical step?
There's two that I would do in parallel, and we've certainly done this for a number of our clients. The first is survey your customer base, figure out what AI engines they're using. And if you can, survey them about how they're using different AI engines situationally. Because I think that's something we almost all do, most of us do at least, unconsciously. We'll go to Perplexity if we have maybe a more researchy question. We'll go to ChatGPT if we have some other thing. We wanted to write a grocery list or whatever the hell it is. So that's the first step. In parallel to that, you want to get an AI monitoring tool. The one we use at our firm is called Scrunch. There are a ton of these on the market. Muckrack has one. Evertune is another. Profound is another. We looked at a lot before we picked one, but you want to get an AI monitoring tool and you want to see how now looks in terms of how you rank versus a set of competitors for specific prompts. Most of the tools do this pretty well. Then you want to look at, after you've kind of got your baseline, you want to figure out, okay, what prompts do we want to monitor? And then get into where do we need to be to ensure that we are scraped when an engine goes and searches for this prompt. So then you kind of devise your targets from there, devise a content marketing plan and influencer plan from there. But the first two steps, I think, are survey and then also get a baseline using a monitoring tool.
Okay. Now, before we come to the end of today's podcast episode, what's your outlook on the future of PR in an AI first world? Are we heading towards automation, replacing traditional media relations, or do you see AI as a tool to amplify human creativity and storytelling?
I'm bullish on the future, and I'm bullish on the future of PR. PR has always had metrics that it cares about. Now some of those metrics are new and they're potentially more consequential for businesses. A lot of our work in PR is at the upper end of a funnel for most organizations. And AI search is the new upper end of the funnel for, I think, everybody within the next few years. So I'm bullish on the future of PR. I think like a lot of people, I was initially skeptical about AI. I was worried it was coming to destroy my job and my employees' jobs and livelihoods. And it's very, very clear that whatever is out there now is very, very far away from being able to do that. So bullish on the future with AI. It's been a boon to our agency. We are a team of 9 people, and we have really been able to do a hell of a lot more and not have had to hire another 4 or 5 people as we've grown over the last 2 or 3 years. So we would need 15 people if this was 2020. We're able to do it with 9. So it's been great for our agency. I think it's been great for the industry, and generally feeling bullish about it.
Great. Yeah, I agree more. It's additive to kind of what we're doing. I always say I'm a little bit concerned about people that come out of college these days, because I can see AI taking away a lot of the jobs, like the entry-level jobs, right? Where you kind of learn the ropes of, I don't know, PR, media, and things like that, which nowadays I think you can use AI to do that, right? Research, reporting, insights, these kind of things.
And that's been our experience. We just haven't needed the newer employees in the way we might have in the past, exactly as you articulated. I think you said that very well. And I actually worry a little bit, because you had the chance, I think, to get the reps in on the crafts that we are now vocations that we applied make our livelihoods at. I had the chance to do that without having crutches to lean on. And I think for some people coming out of college these days, perhaps they've been able to rely on these things and not had to go through the cognitive elements and problems that generations previous have. Do I know that for sure? Absolutely, I don't. It is a very intuitive feeling. So yeah, it's an interesting thing. What's going to happen to people coming up? We're probably in a state of flux with that. But most service business owners that I talk to say what you said, which is, this is saving me on the grunt labor, the younger labor, that kind of labor.
Yeah. Now, Jackson, thank you for joining me on Performance Delivered and sharing your insights into how AI is reshaping the PR industry. Jackson, where can people connect with you, learn more about proper propaganda, or get their hands on the Tech PR Playbook?
Appreciate it. Properpropaganda.net is the website. Properpropaganda.net. Tech PR Playbook's available at Amazon. Jeff Bezos will bring it to you really quickly. And if he doesn't, or you're having trouble, or you feel like you don't want to do that, just get at me and I will probably send you a copy. I am Jackson at properpropaganda.net, and I am also on LinkedIn as Jackson Wightman.
Wonderful. As always, we'll leave that information in the show notes. Thanks everyone for tuning into the Performance Delivered podcast. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcast application. To learn more about how Symphonic Digital helps brands grow through data-driven marketing and strategic media, visit symphonicdigital.com or follow us on X @SymphonicHQ. Thanks again and see you next time.
Performance Delivered is sponsored by Symphonic Digital. Discover audience-focused and data-driven digital marketing solutions for small and medium businesses at symphonicdigital.com.